Hey everyone, it's Dr. RAMANI. Welcome back to this YouTube channel on narcissism and narcissistic relationships. So I'm going to talk about a pattern that sometimes shows up in narcissistic relationships, or really in any emotionally abusive, but really this is something we definitely see in narcissistic relationships, is when someone harms you and says harmful things or hurtful things, and then they go in for a hug or a snuggle when it's all done. Let's break this down. So trauma bonds are created by the alternation of bad and good, a good day and a bad day, idealization and devaluation. Sometime back on my podcast, the actress and writer Rebecca Humphreys, she said it the most beautifully when she said, in the narcissistic relationship she was in, it was like getting pushed off a 100-story building, and then the narcissist manages to be the one to catch you just as you are about to hit the ground. So they are not just your abuser, they also become your savior. And that is how trauma bonds get created and reinforced. It only works if we have some attachment and desire. And the desire has to be for the relationship to work. And since these trauma bonds are with people we love, with family members or partners, people we care about, we get caught in this toxic dance that can keep us stuck in perpetuity. So let's take Rebecca's analogy, that one thing that can happen often in toxic relationships is that they devalue, they demean, they insult, they argue. And once they feel better, it's almost like they've let it all out, then they go in for the hug. Let me give you an example of how this can look. Let's say it's a situation where they can't find their keys and they believe that you moved them. They say, "Hey, where are my keys? Seriously, where are my keys?" You may respond, "I don't know, I haven't seen them today." They say, yes, you have. You have seen my keys. You had to have seen them. I came home and I put them here, and you always move my stuff. You are so damn disorganized. Look at this mess. You don't put stuff away. I am so sick of it. You have ruined my day. I need to go out in 10 minutes to go pick up that stuff, and if I don't do it, then my entire day is going to be messed up. How could you do this to me? How could you mess with my keys? Now, imagine they're sort of saying this relatively loudly, like I was trying to show, and you really, really did not touch their keys. Some of you may go and try to look for the keys. Others of you may be having a freeze response and just sort of stuck. Some of you may fight back. But most of you will not feel well at this point. There'll be more yelling. They're trying to find them. They're still yelling. Then they say, "To hell with it. I am taking your car. Too bad if you need it." And they grab their coat and they put it on, and voila, their car keys are in their pocket. They feel that pocket. They hear the jingle and they say, "Got 'em." And then, "I'm heading out. No apology." But as they're about to head out, and this is the part that's not okay, they may come in for a hug. They'll say, "Okay, come on, let's make up." And they'll come in for the hug or the kiss. You, meanwhile, at this point, may feel once again sick, exhausted, depleted, scared, or triggered, but they want to snuggle or have a kiss, and "let's make up" makes no sense because they were the ones screaming at you for something you didn't do. So it was largely a one-sided argument, if you even want to call it an argument, because there was no other side to it. Let me give you another scenario. You have an argument with them. They yell and they insult and they invalidate and they scream, and they may storm off or leave. And then when you see them later, they come home in a good mood and they just want to snuggle. So this pairing of physical affection, when you have not had the opportunity to process the harms of what they have done, is not good for you. I'm not even sure if you process it, it's good for you. It feels intrusive and uncomfortable. And if you try to push them away or freeze up or don't respond, they're going to tell you that you're difficult and unforgiving. But at a somatic level, to have the person who just psychologically harmed you then try to touch you in a soothing or intimate manner, for a lack of a better way to say it, it feels kind of gross. And once again, you may feel as though there's no response you're allowed to have, because if you push back or don't respond to them, it all starts again. It's always important to remember that narcissistic folks use conflict to regulate. The yelling and the screaming and the abuse allow them to reassert their power. And as they shatter you, they feel better. So after they feel better, and that coupled with their lack of empathy, then as far as they're concerned, everything's fine. And they come in for the hug, or they just assume that you want to snuggle because the argument's done. And they play upon the self-blame and your self-doubt, because when you push back or say, like, I'm not hugging you, we're going to have to talk about this more, or you just say it doesn't feel okay, then you become the bad person who can't let go of stuff. It feels very violating when someone swoops in for a hug or a snuggle or a kiss after they have harmed you, and there has not been a period of time for you to talk it out or work it through. Everything is on their time frame, and the more that happens, the worse it feels. Things in this kind of relationship feel like they are happening to you and not with you. You are basically relegated to being an object, a sort of adult pacifier that they use to regulate. And when they are done with the yelling, they will want to regulate by being held. It's really not much different than a tantruming toddler that screams and cries and just starts yelling in the middle of a store, and then they need a hug from the parent afterwards. But there's a big difference, that toddler is 3, not 53. But many people are confused and really put off and confused by this dynamic. It definitely is something that reinforces, as you can imagine, the trauma bond. And it can also reinforce the sense that somehow you're the one who's closed off, you're the one who's mean, you're the one who's cold or unforgiving if you don't just go with it. It's not true, but it's an absolute catch-22, because there's no way you can talk about it with them, to share your feelings. And then there is the stuckness, and that tees up the self-blame. The key is to understand this dynamic so you can at least start to identify it and slowly maybe even break out of some of the self-blame cycles as well as the self-doubt, because you're not going to really be able to fix the situation. Therapy can be a place to address the feelings that a dynamic like this brings up. But when someone goes from rage to affection, it's very normal to not want to hug back. In fact, almost feel disgusted at the idea of hugging back. It's not you being closed off or distant or holding a grudge. It's that other person of not having no empathy or absolutely no awareness of how their behavior is affecting you. So if that dynamic happens to you, be aware it is quite harmful. It reinforces the trauma bond. And when they simultaneously put themselves in this position as tyrant and tormentor and lover and hugger and carer of perpetrator and then savior, there's really no winning at that game. And it really helps you understand why this relationship is not only so difficult to remain sort of sane in, but even more difficult if you want to get out of. And you can learn more about how to heal from these relationships in my new book, It's Not You. It is available for pre-order now. You can just hit the link in the video description. Order it now. It's coming out in just a few more weeks. Thanks again.